Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building a brand new city, the capital city, a master plan city in Clearwater County. And I'm really excited to get to this build, but we need to head back to Fairchild for just one moment before we do so. And here we are back at the Consolidated Elementary and High School, and I made a couple of changes off camera that I want to point out based on your feedback. So first of all, it was mentioned that this area right here where I had some random landscaping and I removed all the pavement, that would be an ideal place for ball sports. And I agree, makes a ton of sense. So I used the vanilla basketball court decal and vanilla hoops and placed them right here using Find It. And it's really nice. It adds a little bit of functionality here, a little bit of form, makes it look like a more happening place. And I used the parking lot decals to create these 4 square courts. So just rotating these around, you can make a nice little 4 square court, which I think would be absolutely fantastic. I don't know how many days I played 4 square in elementary school, but it was a lot. Next, Planner Pete in the Discord pointed out that there is a cargo access to the theater at the high school, and I blocked it with a tree. So I have removed that tree, added some concrete so that you could drive up to it, load up your props and everything that you'd need, your set pieces, and now there's an access there. And I've also added a bit more pavement around here so that you could reach both of these doors. Next, I added a couple of benches over here based on the feedback in the comments. Basically, the idea being that if you were a high schooler and you wanted to sit a little bit further away, go underneath a tree, you could do that as well. And then finally, over here, I've rotated around the angle of the basketball court. Before it was facing the road, it was kind of a weird situation. The entryway led to a fence, and I used the zonable path and I added that here, and then I was able to spin that around and focus this on this without getting a bunch of error messages. Actually, that reminds me, I did the same thing over here, rotated this around and added a path to this little driveway. And now the playground, rather than focusing outside of the school, is focusing to the school. So you'd be able to walk out the main entryway and walk directly into the playground. But we're not done with the school just yet. We have to name it. So I was really pleased to see that there were names for not just the sports team, but also the school. And the name I liked best for the school was Samuel A. Marshall Consolidated School. So let's rename that right now. Samuel A. Marshall Consolidated is named for a former Clearwater County resident who was also a soldier, a dedicated soldier, who always hoped for better education in rural areas so that people could find their way to prestigious universities like Yumble University in Pretoria. So very, very excited to have this name incorporated into the build. Thank you so much, Superflip, for the idea. And then the overwhelming favorite name for the high school sports team is actually the Sabres. So this came from Jim Toigier. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. But basically, the saber is not just a traditional cavalry sword, but would also tie into the Air Force by honoring the first operational U.S. fighter jet. So I really like that name. And I noticed in the comments also that Tyler Hunt said that he'd be willing to create a logo for this. I really, really hope that he does. If he does, we'll absolutely add that in. He is the one that designed the Ashland insignia and did a great job with the logo at the stadium there. He's helped me out a number of things, and I appreciate him. So let's get this renamed. Okay, so now we step away from Fairchild and head over to our capital. And I feel like I first need to explain why we're building a capital. So we're going to dive into a little bit of fiction. Not historical fiction, but future historical fiction. And the United States is bringing in 2 territories and making them states, both Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. Now, to get the agreement on this, there was a need for 2 rural states to balance out the 2 more urban and liberal states. So it was decided that Clearwater County and the area surrounding it, around Lake Superior, would become one state, and another state would be Northern California. So that's the state of Jefferson, and this is the state of Superior. So In anticipation of this becoming a state now, they needed to choose a place for a capital. They chose that right in Clearwater County along this lovely area right here. 2 peninsulas reaching out into the water with a wonderful view of the coast. So with that, there's going to be a lot of government jobs that are brought to this city. There's going to need to be a university to educate people to work in those jobs, and a great deal of planning will need to go into building out this city. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to use our planning roads and develop a whole logical layout for this community, and maybe by the end of it, we'll get our first couple of houses zoned in. And I want to first, the terrain is going to be our guide. That's a Lee Hawkins throwback. We're going to respect the topography, in my words. So what I want to do, first of all, is think about what is going to go where. So this is going to be not just the state capital, but it's also going to be the county seat. So we're going to remove that from Ashland and relocate it over here. So the courthouse over here will likely become maybe an apartment or some other sort of civic building. But we're not going to worry about that just yet. We will revisit our older communities in a coming episode, but right now, let's focus on the new build. So let's paint our districts just to give ourselves an idea of where things are going to go. So this right here is going to be our county seat district. I'm thinking that up here, we are going to have a university. This will be kind of a tricky one, but I think that we need to step outside of our comfort zones, and I'll show you why I want to have it up there afterwards. And then right here, so right here will be our capital. So let's name this capital. County seat, university. So that is really just, I want to set the framework there so we understand what we're doing and what's going on. We also have a planning road that has been here for a while. We're going to be using all planning roads for this, and we're going to keep the build moving. And the main reason for that is we're going to need a lot of money for this build eventually for some of our buildings, because we're going to be building a lot of really grandiose, city beautiful style monuments, and those are going to be expensive. So we need to be mindful of that. So let's pop in here and take a quick look at our terrain. Look at that. We can just come up here, and what we're going to do is build in the basin. I'm going to start here. We'll start with our county seat, and what we're going to do is just follow the terrain here. We go up 46. Nothing magical about that number. This number is a bit more magical. I want this number to be even, so I can divide 34 in half, and that is the main reason why I want 34. And then we'll come down again, 36, although we've got to flatten a bit of terrain to make this work. Although we can just use a bit of move it magic. We're not going to respect our topography right here. So you can respect me, topography. Okay, so we have, this is 34, so halfway here is going to be 17. So let's go ahead. What I want to do is round this area, so we'll go just beyond where it jets out, and then we'll go over 17, and then we'll repeat that same pattern right here. Much easier the second time around. And we don't want this road there. That was just a guideline. And I'm going to be doing a lot of that today. So we're going to have to get used to that idea. So this is the start. We're going to place our courthouse back here, and behind it will be a park leading out to this absolutely wonderful lighthouse. And when we have our university built, you'll have a beautiful view from the university of the courthouse, the Capitol, and the lighthouse. So we're really thinking about all of our views as we develop this. Now, coming from here, we're going to have a bit of a radial design. It's not going to be 100% radial, but for the time being, let's do it. So I'm going to send this out to there for now. That's going to come back, but for the time being, I want it to go straight out. We're going to do the exact same thing here, and here as well. And we'll do the same thing on that side. This one's a little tough because I am grabbing just kind of a random spot in the middle to make this work, but I do want that spot right there. So now I want to give some thought to the vistas from across the bay. And truthfully, I'm a little dubious about what I've done here. So the reason why I feel that way is I want the Capitol to be in this area, and I want there to be a clear line of sight from the future county courthouse all the way to the Capitol. So we are going to create that right here. And to maintain this, I'm going to send a temporary bridge all the way across here, because this road right here and this line of sight is going to be absolutely critical. So we're going to mirror that on this side as well. I do need to again delete what I've done here. And the main reason for that is I want that angle to be absolutely perfect. And now I get that natural note again. So I do have to have anarchy and straight slopes on here, and it will give me an excellent effect. And the nice thing about this is you can see that it creates a more natural connection up to this. And that's going to be important because we do not want to cul-de-sac anything here. So we have one road right here. We're going to need to add another one coming up this way, which you might remember from the April Fool's episode. We are going to indeed put a road there, but it's going to be much more challenging to get it there than I made it appear in the April Fool's episode. Because I didn't really care there. I just went for it. So added that node there. I'm not certain that I'm going to keep all of these roads, but for the time being, we'll go with it. So what I want to do now is select my grid. And the grid that I've been thinking about that I think would work really well and be really unique is a 14 by 8 grid. So maybe I should call it an 8 by 14. I'm not sure. So we'll go up 8 here, and I'm going to turn off my road guidelines and get this going. Now, before I get too far on this, I want to respect the coastline. So the way that we're going to do that is to draw some lines along the coast. We'll connect these up. We'll draw them along the beach. I don't want to inadvertently develop the beach. But this is not going to be a beach that people swim in, just bluntly. Not these ones anyway. And then we'll use our curved road tool to make all these connections. We'll have to have our road guidelines back on. And now I'm going to bring this up as far as I can without creating a bunch of strange roadway networks. We're going to get there. We're going to have lots of strange networks in this. And the road guidelines are certainly going to help me get there if I keep leaving them on. Because you can just tell it really kind of messes things up for me. So I'm going to turn those off. You can see it goes between 89.4 degrees and 90. 90 will give me that perfect block length. And we're going to do a mixture of plopping and actually adding zoning to this. So I do want to make sure that zoning is possible at the maximum density, even though we're going to be plopping quite a bit of this. We need to look at our terrain now because we went up way too high. And we're going to have lots of roads like this where we are respecting the terrain rather than going up a hill. We will keep it going in the right direction. We'll keep it at that same height. And if we're going to go up, we need to do something with the terrain, not just start building up a slope. That's not okay. So here, from this spot, we went up 8. So we're going to do the exact same thing here. And you're going to notice that I'm doing lots of things here. Lots of things that are likely going to make you uncomfortable as I'm just overlapping these and, doing some things that are likely, you might see them as questionable. We're going to do that because I think that it makes good sense to do so. And I think you'll see why at the end. So basically what all this overlapping allows me to do is maintain my distances. So the other thing I'm noticing is I have created some really messy junctions here. So we are going to work on that. And basically what I'm going to do is use my freeform tool to make those connections at that short one. And then at the longer one, I will turn my road guidelines back on and bend this right back over. And then here, we're going to bend these as well. So I've got these all lined up. And honestly, that's not far enough back. I'm going to add a node back here. Just delete the ends. And then I should have the ability to... nice and naturally turn these. And now I can get rid of these guides that I created. So what this has done for me is created a nice, even looking radial grid. There are some oddballs in here, some oddities, and you'll see those, and they will be just fine. We're okay with that. So one of the things I'm realizing is this block length here is longer than I wanted our blocks to be. So I wanted all the blocks to be 14, so we are going to add in a block here. And then here, we are going to again make that turn using our freeform tool and then our curved road tool. Now, I think I might be going too far on this, and I'm going to change it up right here. So let's get our 14 again. And you see that I'm just creating a ton of guides for myself. And it works out really well when you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off gridding up to the border, which I have done. We'll go one more up here. And truthfully, we've gone a little bit beyond where I was hoping to go. Here we will make this roadway connection straight across. And we'll make this look naturalish by curving it just a little bit. There we go. And then we can connect up our grid. So now we've got this weird oddity here. And it's interesting, we don't have that over here, and that is because we weren't able to create as large of a grid. We turned it in a different way. And I might need to give this some more consideration and thought, and that might fix it for us. So I'm just going to add this for the time being so we can again mirror what we did on the other side. So I'm hoping that I can fix this fairly terrible node. I don't know if it's going to be possible. We're going to try. So the way that I'm going to try is just by doing a bunch of manual adjustments here. And you just got to play with this a little bit. Back things up. And sometimes you can get away with one, sometimes you cannot. And this is a time where I cannot, so I will have to remove that extra node I added in. And we'll just freeform it into place. Not the end of the world. We can figure that out with a little bit of fixing there. Make it look a little bit better. We'll need to play with it just to make it look completely perfect. And I can even make it look a little more angular by playing a node controller a bit. So there we go. That's an ugly intersection, but we're going to have lots and lots of those. So what this gives me is an opportunity to straighten this out just a little bit. And here's what we're going to do. We're just going to take this with our road guidelines and turn this back around into this. Much, much, much better. And then this is our vista, but there's really nothing on that side. I mean, there is, but there isn't. So I think we're going to eliminate that and just send this right in. So that will be the end of that there. And you can kind of start to see how this is taking shape. And we're going to just finish this out before we do a couple of things and then get building on the other side. So I want to focus on what will be the main corridors through here, so the collector streets. So what we're going to do is upgrade those ones because they're going to be our view corridors and our busiest roads, which I have really mixed emotions about. just being completely honest with you. But we're going to go for it. And you can see everything got messed up through here, and we're going to fix some of that. Part of that is we have these collectors turning into local roads. So we can fix some of that by upgrading these, and wow, are there a lot of extra nodes through there. I'm going to actually come through here with my node removal tool and get rid of a couple of these, like this one. That is not helpful, nor is that one. And we've got a bunch of them here, but I can't get rid of those ones. That one I can. So that should really be beneficial. I'm also going to come through here and see if I can do anything about this. So those nodes are terribly broken, and there may be a way to fix it, but it's going to be a challenge. So what I'm going to do is come through here, and let's This is going to kind of be a crash course on figuring out nodes. We've got 2 nodes here. I want both of those gone because we're going to add some more. And we'll send this down through. And we'll send this in. Now, this is not meeting at that center node, so we get an extra node. We get an extra one there. Now, let's go ahead. We'll go into our roundabout builder. And what I think we're going to do to resolve this is add in a small roundabout. And that should resolve most of our issues there. We do have these overlapping nodes again, though, so that is a bit of a concern. And these are just going to be too close. So the other solution that we have is to do something I didn't really want to do, and that is change this down, downgrade this to just our normal planning road. And maybe I'll just do that for these side roads, and hopefully that'll be enough. Alternatively, I can just let good enough be good enough here and leave this open. And I think that that actually might be our best solution. So the courthouse is going to be on this road anyway. We can have this have a circulation pattern and meet up there. It doesn't need to connect all the way through. This is going to be an important road. Don't get me wrong. This one less so. This is actually just for the vantage point. So I'm gonna let that one lie. So let's go ahead and create some of our other roads through here. And I want to really pay close attention to our terrain back here. So we are going to mirror the terrain edge here. And I'm going to do that in a couple of different locations, and we'll connect these with the curved road tool. Now, I did decide to mirror this here. I think that's a good call. We'll be able to have a nice mirrored road back here that lines up really nicely. So we're going to do that. Now, this one is considerably more problematic. So we'll need to back that out just a bit and curve it right here. And I wasn't even getting a guideline for that one. Apparently it didn't like that. So there we go. And now we have this existing road back here that we're going to need to contend with. I think we're going to move it. It was a planning road, and our plans have changed just slightly. I think that that's too far away. So let's first think about where this city is going to end. And I think we're going to end it right about here after the beach. We're not going to lay out all of the roads and plat them all out today, but I do want to plat out a significant number. So after this, we're not going to worry too much. We'll let it deviate back. But for as long as we are in the city, let's continue to maintain that distance from the hillside. And really, it's following this terrain line right here. And now from here, actually, I'm going to redo this in its entirety. So this dips all the way back here. I don't think that's appropriate for what we're doing. This is going to be one of the main ways into this community. So it's going to be reusing the interchange that we have over here, the diverging diamond over in Shorewood, and you'll be able to drive all the way through to get to the capital. And if that's the case, we need to be really mindful of what we're doing with our land here. So let's do that. Let's be mindful. So I'm going to come here. We'll again mirror what we've been doing. Try to find a road guideline that helps me. And then I'm just going to send this straight across. This will be fast. And then I'm going to have a real gentle curve here because we want speed, which will make everyone here at Elk Square really excited. And funny thing is, I don't think we have a name for Elk Square. I think that just was the auto-generated name. Same with Meadow Gardens. I may have asked you for a name for these at one point. I'm sorry. I definitely do not remember what that name was. So if you have a name for the golf course or the community off the golf course, drop it in the comments. I'm going to be asking for a lot of names coming up soon. Some from patrons and some from patrons and YouTube members and some from the general audience. This is a case where I really want you all to provide some feedback. And this is an angle I was actually able to fix. It's going to let me get away with this one. So now what I'm contending with is we've got some broken segments, and just kind of playing around lets me find an angle here. It's ugly, but it will work. And I'm really excited because this is going to be an important angle for us. This turn looks pretty bad, so we're going to clean this one up. Much better. So now we have this road that follows the side of the hill, and we're going to build our capital. So we've got this right here, and I think that we've got to do something special with this. So the very first thing I'm going to do is come through with our For You road again. Let's just run this all the way across because this is going to be the center of something really grand. But we need to find our edges. So I want to use this as my guide. We'll send this up. We'll call it 40. We'll go over 40 and then down 40 again. And then I want to bring this back around. So the nice thing about 40 is 20 is easy to figure out. We'll go up 15 and we'll bring this right in. Look at that. There we go. So you might be wondering what this is. This is going to be what leads up to our Capitol building. So we are going to send this out 14. And this is 40 units long. We're going to extend this out 40 units long. And this is going to be a very important part of our community. So what I want to do now is create kind of a bound for this, kind of a boundary, a border of sorts for this. So let's go out. We're going to go out our 14. I think it's interesting when you have a master plan city, how you'll see certain motifs repeated throughout. And this is one that we are going to go after repeatedly. 14s and 8s. Okay, and now what you'll see that we've done is we've created a view corridor right here and a view corridor right here. So we could place a really special building right here that could have a park behind it going all the way to the ocean, maybe with some monuments, and then flank it at the other end with another unique building. So that is what we are thinking right here. This little area is going to be a very, very important part of the community. That said, I am not satisfied. This was 40. And now we no longer have our 40 here, so I'm going to extend this out 40 because I want that balance that we are going to be missing otherwise. There we go. So that is the balance that I was hoping for. So from here, we are going to start to recreate some of the patterns that we had before. First of all, let's get this upgraded, and then we will get rid of this bridge. The point of this whole exercise with the bridge was to create this, and you see that we have that visual continuity through here. So that is exactly what I wanted to do. So why don't we again recreate some of the patterns that we were doing before, but this time rather than using some radial designs, what we're going to do is mirror those designs. We're going to follow the coast, and we're going to follow our pattern here. And I think that that's going to create something really unique and natural for us. And the nice thing is we have our 14 there already, so we just go up 8. And I'm going to leave this for a moment as we figure this side out. So over here, we'll go over 14. And it's really going to struggle with this one. It does not like it. So I'm going to create another road just beneath it, and that will give me my first guide. And then I can just get rid of that. Just wanted that so I could begin to create my grid here. And this side, I'm going to go the exact opposite route. So what we'll have here, actually, I don't know that I love that. So you might wonder why I chose 14 and 8. Seems kind of random. And to a certain extent it is, and then it's also not. The reason why I chose this is there will be a high density of intersections, which is good for pedestrians. So I really wanted that to be a focus here. And the more intersections you have here, the more opportunities there are to cross at roads, take a different path, take interesting paths. And I think that's really important. So that's what we're doing. Here we've got kind of a weird junction again. We're just going to leave that one. And when we upgrade, whoa, we might need to do something there. So I'm going to pull this out another block, and then we're going to try to turn these into one another. Now you can see that this already creates some interesting issues. So this road right here in general, we're going to need to deviate just a bit. What I'm going to do is take this back and curve this road in. So we'll always start the curving on this side, turn our road guidelines on, and curve that in. So this is creating some more interesting block lengths, and I think it's creating some opportunities too for some interesting junctions in the future. This one, for instance, I really dislike, and potentially we turn that into a roundabout. The only problem is it disrupts this. Now I am curious if I were to roundabout this, exactly how it would turn out, if it would look any good. So let's just say I come through here, I shrink this up. And I am fat fingering it right now, so what are you gonna do? So yeah, that's not gonna look very good. So we'll just undo that, and that'll be just fine. It does create a nice roadway layout, so I will just kind of leave it as is. Now here, I'm gonna mirror the exact same thing. We'll come down 14. There we go. And I'm not sure that I like that. We're going to have to give that some thought. There might be a better way of addressing this, and maybe it's just honestly ending this here and allowing this to be a large park space or have some larger buildings develop off from that. I'm just going to leave that for the time being. So I'm going to extend this out and fill the rest of this up, and I will be back with you in just one moment. Okay, and I filled in most of the streets here, trying to make logical connections, and you can see as these grids merge together, you get some irregular block patterns, and it feels a lot more natural and organic like that. So I really appreciate that part of it. I do want to fill in some blocks here too, because we're kind of connecting these two communities at this particular point. So I will repeat that 8 unit break here. Okay, so now that we have this, and you can kind of see how these are coming together, we need to think about how we're getting out of here. And I think that's going to be one of the most important parts about this entire build. So I'm going to take my 4-unit road, and we are going to come through here and bring this back. So this is going to be the way, the primary motor vehicle path through the city. And you're going to see that we've got lots of tearing. It's very unhappy with me. We're going to need to do something for some of these areas. Okay, so there are a couple of weird spots here, and the way that we're going to resolve some of this is just getting rid of some of these extra roads we don't need. And then in some cases, it'll be finding those weird little nodes that got left behind and eliminating them. So not a huge deal, but it's something we've got to do. And then we'll make these connections. Again, another weird block. I'm wondering if I can fix this one with no... Wow, that is... that is not going to work, but for some reason the game loves it, thinks it's great, and would live with it. Ah, there's an extra node there. I absolutely adore those. They're wonderful. When you get that extra node and it just makes it impossible to make that connection. This is much better now. We can square this up and make it look really nice. And I think this road is coming through at all the right places except for here. Again, this is probably a spot where I just let that be a bigger block. Get rid of that extra node. And now we're in a good place. This, I'm going to try to live with this one. Okay, this will be another example of got to get rid of it and eliminate that extra node. And I think that's going to be our default. When in doubt, just get rid of that node. And now we have another segment here that for whatever reason I can't upgrade it, and that's that extra node again. It's going to be the death of me, I swear, because they're just kind of obnoxious. There we go. And things are looking good now. I really, really like the way this laid out. We're going to have vistas abound. So we can get here now from Shorewood, but we can't get here from the highway. And that's going to be incredibly important to us. So we're going to need to be very mindful of this. And if you take a look, first of all, pop out of here. Beach, we don't want to go on the beach. Cliffs here, we don't want to disrupt the cliffs. And then it's really steep coming up from here. And we've got our collector right here. What I think we're going to do is do some terraforming. We're going to do our very first terraforming of this whole build. Not of the entire series, but this particular build today. And let's pop in here, and I just want to flatten this out. So we'll ride right at the top of this cliff, and we'll be very gentle with it. And now we're going to slope up from here. So we'll use our slope tool. I'm going to bump that up to 50 or 60. Hit the top and slope up from the bottom. Perfect. So I'm going to use my 2U roads. We are going to upgrade this to a 4. We're going to be proactive about our planning. And in a master plan city like this, a capital in particular, if you look at Brasilia or basically any master plan city that's been built in the last, I don't know, 100 years, they generally overdo it on their collectors, and we're going to overdo it on our collectors too. It's going to be a thing. We're going to create some traffic, and then we're going to resolve some traffic in the best way possible. So let's go ahead, and I noticed that the slope is maybe a little more than I wanted it to be. That's much better. So now we can come through here with our curved road tool and a nice junction in. I think we're going to roundabout this. We'll have to handle that when we get there. So now we need to find a way to get all the way over here. And it's going to be a trick. It's quite the distance, but we need 2 ways to get out of here. This is not going to be acceptable to have just one way in and out of here. So rather than going to Rico, we're going to go and look at our terrains and again, pull this over, and we'll round this. I don't want to start raising up terrain here, so we're going to slope down, and we don't want to build on the beach. That is sand, and you cannot build on sand. So we'll jog this thing over just slightly. So again, with our 2U road, pull this straight back, try to mirror that terrain that we just created. And then we're going to use our sloped road tool again. Come up here, hit our top height, come to the bottom, left mouse button, and click it right up. We might need to use node controller on that. We very well might. That's okay. And now we can curve really nicely here. Now the terrain should be much more favorable for everything that we're going to do. And I want to keep this road as straight as possible, basically. So I'm going to pick this terrain height here, and we're just going to send this straight back. And then from here, I do think that we're going to connect up in this general area, but we don't need to, we actually don't want to cross the river just yet. We're going to need to cross it likely right here. The reason I don't want to just keep going straight is then we have to cut through this hill. So that's not going to be desirable for us. So we'll just smooth out along the banks here. And now you can see that we are going to have a very nice and straight connection, which means it's fast, safe, convenient. Let's double check our terrains to make sure we didn't guesstimate anything wrong. And now you can see this little path that we've made for ourselves. And we can pull this around, get our terrain line, or our road guide line, smooth connection. Now we've got this. This is going to be our struggle. So we need to loop this back around. I think we're going to find our connection into the highway first, truthfully. I think it'll be our easiest solution. This is all flat here. I'm going to go over to modes and select our normal mode. Otherwise, it's going to flatten this and create a land bridge over there, and that's not what we want. For the time being, we're just going to have a pretty conventional connection onto the road, and then we'll cross. We'll try to have a nice straight crossing. It's a struggle because so this is honestly probably my best bet is to come here, and it's fine. We're going to do that. I generally like to make my bridge crossings as short as they can be, but in this case, we're going to prioritize speed over all else, but our connection to the highway needs to go over. I don't want to get too close to this bridge here, so that's what I'm struggling with a bit. So we are going to meander this, and we'll send that over and up, and hopefully we can find a road guideline. There we go. and we can send that over. So that is a pretty darn good connection in my estimation. We're also going to just turn it right in here. And now we've got some work. We're not going to have an at-grade crossing. This is going to be a very high-speed road. So what we're going to do is take... Whoa. What is that? Interesting. That is not what I thought we were doing. There we go. I did not want to add a new cargo station. That was not my game plan. I'm going to turn collision off so I don't ruin all these rocks. And I will turn this into a bridge. And we'll cross right there. So we're going to raise that up a little bit. And in fact, that's going to necessitate us to bridge a little bit beyond this as well. And I thought when I looked at our terrain, yeah, truthfully, I don't think we're going to need to do that. So if we send that down and meet our heights there, and then get rid of this, for whatever reason, Picker thinks I really, really, really want a table or something. So I guess I cannot pick the bridged section of this. All right, so now that I have the railroad across, I can turn this into a bridge with Anarchy. And what I'm going to do is just lower this a little bit. And then hopefully we'll be able to have a little bit nicer of a connection here, not have so many bridge segments. So I'm just holding Alt, moving this over, trying to create a nicer bridge. I'm gonna convert this back to a ground level segment here. And then I'll do the same thing over here. So I think that's a little bit nicer in terms of the way it's laying out. And then I can even take that segment there and convert that to a ground level segment as well. And I like this a lot more. To me, that makes a ton more sense. So there we go. We got one more segment here that we can also upgrade. There we go. And I don't think I've ruined all of Eggsy's handiwork here. And now we have our connection. Now these are going to be 4-lane roads again. So we're going to make that fix. And the reason that we're doing that is, again, we are planning for significant growth. And right off the bat, we're going to just go for it. And you'll see that happen in some of these master plan communities, these larger capital type communities where they just go for it. They just plan for whatever they think level of service is going to be 50 years down the line. I think that's really foolish because when you're doing that, first of all, it's not an exact science. You're not 100% sure. It's as much an art as a science. And when you do that, you're overbuilding and you're planning on a city that has a significant burden in terms of its costs. And I don't know why you do that to the city. That road infrastructure is very expensive. So don't force the city to pay for that right off the bat. So I decided to simplify this. And one of the reasons why is we have a lovely beach over here and there are currently no beaches in the community. I think we have an opportunity to provide some planned access to the beach. So we will do that. We'll send a road back there and people will be able to access that beach. Right here, I was thinking about having a roundabout. I don't think it's necessary at this point now that I've simplified some of this. And there we go. So the one issue that I have with this now is before there was a nice, easy way to get between these collectors, and right now there's not. So I think that what we're going to do is upgrade the collectors around here, which to me sounds like a very over-engineering solution that would absolutely happen. Looks terrible, functions poorly, but on a map it looks great. You can see, look at this, and look, we're pointing to it. You could even send these down there. Why not? That's absolutely horrible, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to do the exact same thing here. We're going to over-engineer this and overthink about what we need. And obviously what we need are collector avenues going up the side. Yeah, that's about right. So there we go. And I have these extra segments there. We'll get rid of those for the time being. Same thing with these. We'll just open this up and we will let our buildings dictate what happens here because we're going to have a lot. We'll get rid of these and upgrade all of those. So this is a logical network, if not it's not great. Like that's just way too many collectors, but that certainly happens. This is going to be the start of our capital city. And I think from here, I was thinking maybe we could do more. What I'm going to do is just kind of go through and add some districts as reminders to where we want to put some things. So I'm going to empty some of these out and add in a few. Okay, so just a couple of small things. The Monument Square, a couple of parks. We've got our university, I labeled that before. This is going to be our county park. So just a couple of cues to ourselves. Now I did find some really neat assets I want to drop in. I've got enough money for some of them too, so we're gonna go for it. So all of these roads will be planned around unique buildings. So first we have our courthouse right here, and I want to make sure that this is straight, so we're going to add in some of our planning roads. And you can see that it's not in the right spot. Not a big deal, we can fix that. And truthfully, we need to level some ground, so we're going to do that first. You can see that it just pops right up right there, and that's not going to work for this. And then maybe rather than having a whole bunch of, let me bring that back for just a moment. Rather than having a whole bunch of roads in here, I think it would be nice to have some sort of pedestrian amenity focusing on this area. So let's send a path right down the center here. And I'm going to turn off my road guidelines now, and we are going to just focus on making really nice pedestrian connections through here. And we'll worry about cleaning this up a little bit more in the future, but you start to see how this could be a really special place as we plan around this building. We also have a Capitol building. I'm really curious to see how you all feel about this. It's either going to be highly controversial or incredibly loved. This is the Havana, Cuba Capitol. And I don't want this to face the water. I want it to face the buildings. So I am going to come through here with a pedestrian road. And we will turn on just our grid. And then we'll use Move It to turn this around and get this lined up. I should have had Alt so I can get my snapping on. And you can see it even allows me to bring it back a little bit. I'm going to see, if I hold Alt, how that looks. We'll just need to add something ourselves. Not a big deal. So I think this is an absolutely stunningly beautiful asset. So there are two versions of this available. One of them, in Spanish, you'll have to forgive me for that. One of these versions is post-restoration, and one of them is before the restoration. So I think it's really a unique asset. Brings a lot of character into this build. So I think we'll place it right there. We've got our pedestrian connections. And I really, really, really like the way that looks. So I can't tell. I think this is centered. It's really difficult to tell. So what I'm going to do is, that is centered. It's as centered as I'm going to be able to get it. So there we go. At the other end of this, I want to flank this with a few buildings. So let's come through here, and I've got some interesting ones. So we have this decorative arts museum that I think, would really be an excellent monument piece. Now we're going to rotate this around so it's facing the Capitol, but we've got to find a way to get around this building, because right now what you're seeing is it just doesn't look very good. It's in the middle of the road. So we're going to eliminate the collector right there, do the same thing on this end, and then we're going to add this in here, give it one tile on either side, and now we need to find a nice way to get this over. The nice thing is with Move It, very simple to just create that road there, have it bulge a bit, and then hold down Alt as you do this, and you can have a nice angle that repeats itself. You could go in either direction. I'm deciding to go this way. And, truthfully, if we wanted, we could do something like this. If we had this going in a little bit, I'm wondering, if there's a way that we can make that look nicer. And I think I know the way. So what we're going to do is come through here with our 2-unit road, and rather than coming all the way to here, we're going to go in just 5 from there. So what that's going to do is give us 2 different nodes. And now when I pop in to move it, and I bulge this one out, and I bulge this one in, you get that nice connection through there, where there's a bit of a curve. I like that. So let's eliminate these. We're going to turn this building around. We're going to add our pedestrian road. And because I don't want to pay for this again, we've spent over $1 million. We're going to just use move it. Oh, and I didn't use alt, which isn't going to help me when I'm rotating it anyway. So I guess there's that. And my road's in the wrong spot anyway, so I'll need to do some work. So we're going to send that back through, and now here we are with our building. I can tell if it's lining up straight based on those steps up. So I can put those there, and then I can hold Alt to perfectly align it, and it's not going to perfectly align because of the grid in this area. Not a big deal. We'll figure it out. Now we'll need to do something back here. This blank wall is pretty ugly, and that's not cool. Maybe an amphitheater or something like that. I don't know. If you have some ideas for what could be behind here, think of a big monument. What goes behind that? And we will figure that out. So at this point, I am going to place some water pipes underneath our roads right where they belong and get this place prepped. This is not something, again, that I recommend, but because we are just master planning this all, I don't want to have to keep coming back to the water pipes. I don't think anyone wants to watch that. I don't want to do that. So we're just going to do our best and deviate from a bit of reality, and we'll all be happier for it, I think. Let me know if you're not happier for that. I hope you are, because I am. Now we're going to take a quick break from water pipes to turn these buildings off. We are just burning money. This one was $1,600 per week. This one's $1,040. That is crazy. This one right here is $320. None of those work. So it's not in our best interest to have those going right now. We will get them going, but we need to have some development first. And trust me, this whole place is going to develop like wildfire. So I'm not concerned about that at all. I do want to connect the water pipes up though, so I get that lovely indicator telling me that everything is going well with my water pipes. Okay, water pipes underneath the roads, right where they belong. Now, you might be watching this whole build and you're thinking to yourself, okay, planner, you are breaking every single rule that you've ever put out there. You have built all this infrastructure, and you know what? I'm unsubbing. I'm done with this channel. I want to tell you why this is okay. So this would be considered a platting process. So there are 2 different kinds of platting processes. Every community requires a final plat. And a final plat is basically the roadway layout, right-of-way preservation, and rather than just roadway layout, because you also want to see where utility easements would be, things of that nature, and where each lot would be, its dimensions and its acreage and size. That is a final plat. The preliminary plat would go into more detail. You would see things such as, where the park space might be and what that park might be, the kind of park. You might see things like paths and where those connections would be made, the actual engineering of those paths. The lines would be fairly close to the ultimate layout and location of those particular paths. So there's all that sort of information. You might even see where gas pipes are, where water pipes would be. You would get a very fine grain level of detail. So I would look at this as a combined preliminary and final plat. And you'd sometimes get those in as well, where you'll get a preliminary plat and a final plat in one, where you have all of the detail that you could possibly need, all of the steep slopes, all of the forested areas, all of this information in a nice tight package so you can consider it all at once. So that is what you would see in this sort of planning process, but you would also probably have a plan that goes into a variety of things, It would walk through all of the natural features, walk through all the utilities, all the future park spaces, all of the schools, or potential schools. You can't necessarily 100% dictate where everything's going to be, but you can certainly say this is our ideal location for a library, for instance. So we've done this at a very high level, but I think that we've done okay. Now I do want to go through here and just take one last gander at this because I see things already that bug me. So we're going to fix a couple of these sorts of things. One of these was right here. I'll turn all these back on, go out 8. And then I'm going to curve this road down. To me, that seems like a fairly logical terminus of this. In fact, I'd love it if there were shore here to finish this. It's going to drive me nuts, but it's going to be fine. I just need to accept it. In fact, I should have probably finished creating my roadway network in its entirety over here. I just completely missed it. Okay, and I think that is a pretty darn good spot to leave this. I wanted to get to some zoning, but I think that we're going to hold off until the next one. We want to be really thoughtful about this and really consider it as to the zoning. And I think we might go ahead and zone this in halves. So these communities are going to have a very different feel. Over here, it's going to feel like a real government center. We're going to have to add a number of other government buildings, and we want to name each one of those and figure out what function that building has. As with the head of the state government, you'd imagine that there's a Department of Transportation, a Department of Administration that owns the buildings and owns property throughout the state, Department of Natural Resources that does environmental things, Department of Justice that manages state prisons, and police officer training, Department of Veteran Affairs. There are so many different divisions, Department of Justice, so many different government functions that we need in here, plus our county functions, which would include not just the courthouse, but also a sheriff's office, a county jail. So there are a number of things that we need here that we are going to have to find places for, and we're going to need to give this a lot of thought. I don't want to rush through it. I really want to be thoughtful and considerate about this, but for a lot of those functions, I do think that we're going to need to place them early and then think block by block about how we're developing this area. This is going to be a vibrant university neighborhood, and over here it will certainly feel like a more stuffy government downtown type area. And I'm really curious to see how our grid is going to handle the traffic that's going to be coming its way, because we certainly are going to be relying on roadway connections that are quite distant and a highway over here that has not been upgraded. If you recall, we are divided over here, and then once we get to Shorewood, this goes back down to a 2-lane highway with passing lanes. Not ideal when you have the kind of traffic that I think we're going to see through here. So there is a chance that this also necessitates a highway project. So lots of interesting things to come. I'm very excited about this. We're also going to work some transit into this area because that's going to be a necessity. That said, we are not going to plan around transit. That is not the way this works. And this is really going to be a white collar kind of community. So there are going to be certain things that make it more difficult to develop certain types of transit here in the future, like the lack of a rail line. You see that the rail line, the closest one is over here, not coming into this community. And we're not going to have a ton of industrial in this. We're going to rely a lot on offices. So all things to consider and think about, but I think we're going to leave it here. And if you like this video, please consider hitting the like button. If you are not subscribed to the channel and you want to see me continue this build, please subscribe. I really want to thank you. I've had a lot of fun thinking about the best ways to put this together, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.